Um, there was a good suggestion that maybe, we give administration two numbers and then they can come back with, sort of two sets of options as to what the ramifications of these numbers would be, so that we got a better idea. Because right now it's just numbers. It doesn't really mean anything. We're not talking, we don't really know what those ramifications are of that number. But if we gave them a couple of numbers and then we could, make a decision as we get to our budget and saying whether it's X or it's Y, and we know what the ramifications are. Would that work for people to say, we could give them two options for planning purposes? Would that be reasonable? You got two things to plan around?
Absolutely. Having some type of a target would benefit the administration greatly, even if it's two targets. Absolutely.
Even if it's two targets. Okay, so want to make a motion on these two? Anything?
How do you want the motion worded?
I don't know. How about something like
use option 2 and fill in the blank.
Okay, what was option 2 again? Fill it in for us, Arlen. Fill those in. Give us a couple of options.
That council approve $450,000 for a actually, how should I say that? What do you want to do? You want to use 450,000, or you want to use 5.25?
Well, I would give them two numbers. Like one, it might be 450, and one might be 550, and come back with the ramifications of them.
Well, then we're not really approving. We're not really approving that number, so that's why. So.
Would we add, say, we're approving that for administration? If we add administration into it, depending on the administration, so they come back to us with a better.
How about we, council directs administration to come back with recreation options based on a $450,000 commitment and a $550,000 commitment. I don't know. Then we have options there, and we can look at what the actual things are when you can bring them back, right? And we can take it to the residents then and say, here's two scenarios.
And my thought is, and I'm hearing my esteemed colleague to the left saying 500 instead of 550, but 550 is the number I don't like, 450 is the number you guys don't like, and it's a compromise. Let's see where this takes us, and then we can make the decisions if we have to fit something in between. I don't know. But at least then we'll have an idea
Exactly. What the ramifications are.
What was 20% of 615 since you were saying?
Well, 25%, but anyway, let's.
480.
480, yeah.
Because you were saying 20%.
Well, we're at 25
Right.
if we go down. Well, actually a little
So if
bit
we said
more than
450 and
25.
500, that still is giving us somewhat of a financial break from what we paid last year.
Well, and again, another good comment is, we're looking at a lot of doom and gloom, but we do have some extra money. We gave a tax break last year that I don't think will be given this year, so that's a increase in some funding that we'll have for.
And unless we get the 450,000 back from the then we're still short all that extra money. So
yeah, we might be
balance it out.
Yeah. So are you good with that motion, or do you
Yeah.
want to change that to something else?
No, that's fine.
Okay, everybody understand the motion? Any question? Okay.
That council direct administration to come back with recreation options with 450,000 and 550,000 dollar commitments to show the ramifications of each.
Rita, don't quit.
Just saying.
Please.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Good discussion. Yeah, it's good discussions. Moving on to our next agenda item, which is 9.1, chemistry controller, Councillor Gilroy.
The council approved the release of funds in the amount of, what's it changed?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so the council approved the purchase of the pool chemistry controller contingent, which is, I was gonna add that, on the approval from Big Lakes County and the town's 50% to be paid from the 2020 operating budget. What do you want it? Because I was gonna say the same thing, unless the county forked their 50% over, I was not gonna support it.
Good. Okay, any questions, comments on this one?
Yeah.
Councillor Stenhouse?
So you're not committing the 15,000 because our bill is actually only 13,380. The cost, our 50% is only 13,380. So what are you committing?
Up to.
Up to. So hopefully that's all in. We believe it's all in, but there'd be some additional electrical costs. So with the motion,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put a dollar value on it.
No,
I
you
need to
didn't.
adjust that one, sorry. Can I adjust
And I
that one?
think the other thing that's not, when I look at this price, there's no GST in there. That'll have to get paid up front, so there'd need to be dollars for that.
So an amendment would be just at the end, up to an amount of $15,000. Would that be a good amendment?
Yep.
So that we have a dollar value on it?
Did you catch that friendly amendment, up to
Give it
15,000?
back, Councilor Stenhouse?
Pardon me?
So I just said up to 15,000, so it doesn't go beyond 15.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried on. Moving down to item 9.2, the seniors bus. Get a motion on this one? Councillor Courtney?
The council partner with Big Lakes County FCSS to provide senior bus services to the town of High Prairie in the amount of $10,000.
All right, and maybe I'll turn it over to our CAO to explain some of the funding that we've had for this.
so thank you, Your Worship. Administrative or council has always had an amount set aside within the budget. This request of $10,000 falls within that limit. I think from administration's perspective, it's there's a lot of positives that we heard from Big Lakes County, and that they were taking on the administration costs of this process. So that's good in that you have full-time staff dealing with right now it's somewhat of a volunteer organization. So I think that was a positive. I think the other positive is also that we heard 2 weeks ago, in that the local seniors group was somewhat encouraged by the discussion that actually transpired here. So this falls within the budget. It deals with the requests that we've had from our seniors community, and also from the positive perspective, it's in talking with the county today, hopefully this number would stay similar to 2021. So that, I mean, it's still obviously a budget process, but I think Big Lakes County is taking on quite a bit of additional work, and they're actually the ones that funded the bus, and they're administering the program. So from an administrative perspective, this is, I guess, somewhat of a good news story.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Danaka?
I'm looking at the Town of High Prairie year-to-date financial statement. This is from June. Under the FCS. For 2020 annual budget, senior transportation, we have $18,000 in here that says that we paid for senior transportation. So I'm confused, you're asking for 10 out of the 2020, but it says we've budgeted 18.
Yes. So,
Your CFO has her hand up, she could maybe address it, or are you up?
but I think the key was that we haven't paid anything yet for 2020. Like
Pardon
we,
me?
We have not paid anything to any
Oh, we haven't
organization.
paid anything?
No, we have
Okay.
not. No.
Okay, so we
Sorry.
budgeted 18, but we haven't paid anything.
That's correct.
Okay, so you just wanted to take it to 10. Okay. Okay,
Councillor Stenhouse?
So I just want to clarify that it's not just a seniors bus. It is a transportation bus. It's not just for the seniors. And will it become High Prairie and Big Lakes County FCSS bus, or will it remain as Big Lakes County FCSS bus? The naming.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're just chipping, I think we're just chipping in.
We're just chipping in on, I mean, they're
Almost half.
paying, well, they were paying more than half, I forget,
It says 2020 year-end projection is 23.9 roughly in the hole. So we pay almost half of that.
They funded the bus, so they purchased the bus. There's
But I thought these guys were gonna be selling their bus as opposed to exploring it.
that may occur, but that bus is owned actually by the Golden Age. So if they wanted to make a donation or do something, that's totally up to them.
They didn't say last time.
They may. That's not a like. That's up to them. Like the Golden Age Society actually owns the bus.
Because I thought they were going all in with, someone correct me please, but I thought they were going all in with they didn't have time for both drivers, both buses, so they were going all in on the one bus. And so they were gonna get rid of their bus, so they didn't have to pay taxes or anything else on it, and then they were gonna bring it over and use that one bus for everything.
yeah, that's correct.
Right. Okay.
All right, any other questions, comments on it? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Moving on then to item 9.3, the fire department equipment replacement. Motion on this one? Councillor Stenhouse?
The council approved the purchase of the self-contained breathing apparatus and the rescue airbags to be funded by the fire department reserve contingent on Big Lakes County approval.
Thank you. We've heard about this. Do we have any questions on it at this point? Councillor Long?
Just a question to the chief. Do you know if they're discussing this at Big Lakes tomorrow?
I believe so.
Okay. That was an easy answer. Yep.
Councillor Gilroy?
Is the money there? I mean, we've had all
Yes.
these weird discussions on where the money's coming from. Is
Yes.
the money to pay for this in that fund you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? That was easy, eh? All in favor? It's carried.
Thank you for waiting so long, guys.
Yeah. Moving on to the mandatory face covering bylaw. Get a motion on this one? Councillor Long?
Council give first reading to bylaw 18/2020, the mandatory face coverings bylaw, this 27th day of October 2020.
All right. Questions, comments? Councillor Danaka?
in our discussion with this the first time, and I'm not remembering this, it says 15. service reports 15 or more active cases. I thought we had went with 10. Like, I don't remember the discussion about 15.
The original one did come in with 10, you're absolutely correct. And I know there was lots of discussion around the table about different numbers, and I brought up, should it be a number or just come to our council, because, the numbers might not be from around here. And I think based on all of that discussion, and I think administration went back and made a change.
Okay.
Based on that, but is that?
Yes, maybe I can make just a quick overview of some of the changes. We took that feedback from the previous discussion. One piece was the number, because that number 10 was just a number, and there seemed to be some appetite for increasing that, so we picked it. We chose 15. Again, nothing is just proposed. The other change, there was some additional discussion regarding how that, when the number goes below that trigger, and a lot of concerns regarding that trigger and what happens if we go back down to 0, et cetera, et cetera. And there's several bylaws out there. In fact, one that was just enacted yesterday in Grand Prairie, that once it falls below that trigger number for X number of days, masks are no longer required. So that has actually been incorporated in this bylaw as well. So there's the trigger, and we put 15 in, that number can be changed, and if it stays underneath that 15 for 30 days, then the masks are no longer required. So that was some of the comments that were around the table. We also removed a penalty for businesses. There was some concern with regards to levying a fine to businesses that have people in. That's removed from the bylaw, but what was added was, which a lot of municipalities are doing, is making it mandatory for businesses to put a sign up. And so we've included draft verbiage that businesses will have to post on their doors. So it's no longer a fine towards the business, but there is a fine if they're not at least posting mandatory mask entry into the store. And then Schedule B was, again, the proposed wording. So it doesn't have to be that exact sign, and administration could absolutely design a couple others, but it provides the wording that businesses would have to include on the sign as patrons enter into their facility. So those were some of the changes. There's also one other discussion point, but we didn't change the bylaw, and that was with regards to religious facilities. And so right now in the bylaw, we've kept it as exempt, meaning mask requirements would not be required in places of worship. We did search that particular component as well. There are a few bylaws out there that don't exempt places of worship. Administration, if council wants to proceed this bylaw, you absolutely get to debate that point. And I think the vast majority of bylaws that we looked at do not, places of worship, they do not enforce that piece. It was interesting, we did some additional analysis, and we looked at the U.S. The U.S. actually, you can't force it, so they actually have legislation in place that you cannot force masks in places of worship, but Canada is a little bit more discretionary. So I think it does put maybe some people in a difficult situation. If that is a place that they have to wear masks, I think it's pretty difficult to ask some of our people in uniform to go into a place of worship and start issuing tickets. I'm not sure it's something that want to do, but those are the brief overview of the changes that we made to the bylaw. If that helps.
Thank you. Councillor Stenhouse.
So that being said, a person of uniform, who's going to be enforcing this? The person in uniform?
A bylaw.
Bylaw?
Yes.
So
The bylaw.
RCMP will not be attending this at all?
No, bylaws are enforceable by our people.
So just hearing from our Staff Sergeant from the RCMP had to say how busy they are. And from our bylaws report how busy he is. Is bylaw up to manpower in enforcing this?
Well, I think with any bylaw, if you know, things are out there and they're abused, they proceed with them based on the highest priorities. So, not every, you know, we've only got so much manpower, and that manpower is distributed based on the highest priorities. So, I can guarantee you, on any given day, with all our bylaws, there's somebody violating something. You know, we can't catch. They don't go out there and catch it. Anything. I think one of the reasons this bylaw is there is, first of all, to bring awareness. You know, the world economy has suffered trillions of dollars in damages. Even the Alberta economy, you know, is still struggling. You go into shops, even in town, and they're not as full as they used to. There's some people that are scared to go into shops, and you know, with the second wave or the third wave, I think one of the things I believe businesses are concerned with is that walk-in traffic, and I think whatever government or municipality can do to attempt to limit that spread helps our local businesses. You know, doing nothing is probably, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. I think what we do as a municipality is try to keep our businesses in business, you know, keep people employed, and I don't think any of us want to go back to what happened in March or April. So, you know, it's you know, we're not going to have people walking around each and every store to see if they're wearing masks. I think if you go into some of the larger centers that already have this mask law in place, everybody complies. It's just it's a standard practice, and so I don't think it's a huge issue from, I think, a bylaw enforcement process. It just becomes part of doing things.
Go ahead.
So, I'm not in support of this bylaw. I've been talking to many people, and they're like me. They're on the fence. They don't know what the right answer is. It's a behavioral issue that we have going on. But just from watching the news and people getting, I'm really afraid that we're going to have too much, that we're going to cause an issue here with people picking on the people who don't have a mask for whatever reason. There are exemptions to it, people who have medical conditions or whatever, or they forget. I think we're going to have issues with this. And I just want to bring up, I really want to bring this up. We received an email back in March or April from AUMA, or Canadian Federation of Independent Business, on how do we support our businesses. And I do remember, there was a list of probably about 10 things, and I do remember that the first one was to delay our tax increases, defer property tax payments, and do not introduce any new bylaws during the COVID crisis. Are we still not in this COVID crisis? I know Edmonton's doing it, St. Albert's doing it, Grand Prairie's doing it, but are we doing it for the right reason, or are we jumping on the bandwagon because everyone else is doing it? We're following Alberta health regulations. Why do we have to up the ante? I will not be supporting this bylaw.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on this one? Councillor Long?
We're being proactive. It's a worn out phrase. We're not being reactive. We're not going to get caught with our pants down over this. This is life and death, and there are people who don't want to wear a mask because it's uncomfortable. It is. I don't like it. It's frustrating. But it's not my right to impose on other people because this is uncomfortable for me. I'm not going to wear it and jeopardize your life. My issue of being uncomfortable does not supersede somebody's right to be safe. And so if I'm walking around town coughing, sneezing, whatever, just sneezing in general, and if I'm asymptomatic, who knows who I'm contaminating? if we have that many cases in our community and in our area, and we will, then we're if we don't try to help protect those people, it's going to be detrimental to a lot of people, and exponentially it just explodes if we don't contain it from the beginning. So we're not jumping on a bandwagon. We're facing the reality that this is the reality now, and we've been pretty lucky. We're not going to continue that luck. The traffic that goes through here every single day from everywhere else in the province, going north to go east to go west, wherever, and they stop here and they get their gas here and they shop here and they park and they go to Ameros and they go to wherever to have their lunch. People from out of our area every single day. And it's coming from Edmonton, one of the hottest spots in Canada. We're going to have it. This isn't a bandwagon. And I don't care if anybody, I don't want to wear it because it feels uncomfortable. I don't care what you think. You don't have the right to infect other people. You have the right and the obligation to try to protect the weakest, and that's the seniors and the people who have health issues. And kids die from this. This isn't just an old person's disease. Kids and children and babies die from this. So it's unfortunate that there's so much bull crap being put on the TV from Fox News and from Donald Trump and his associates and everybody else. Science is what we have to listen to. We have to listen to our doctors. We have to listen to science, and they're telling us this is what we need to do. And we rely on science to build a skyscraper. We rely on science to have a plane fly in the air. We rely on science to help fight cancer when we're sick. But all of a sudden, we're discrediting the science. We're discrediting the doctors that are telling us what's happening in the world and how it's affecting us. For those who choose to watch that kind of broadcast from the States, get your misinformation all you want, but it still doesn't give you the right to infect somebody. We have to protect the weakest in our community. The people, the bridge crew, they don't stand a chance if they get it. And their relatives, their friends, they're people that we know every day. We may not associate, but we see them every day. I just think it's important.
Councillor Stenhouse.
I'd like to rebuttal on that. They're not discrediting the doctors. Following Alberta Health Services guidelines, and that is what we are doing. With this bylaw, you want to take it up one notch from what our scientists and doctors have recommended, and they have set out our recommendations. They're not discrediting them whatsoever. They're following Alberta Health Services regulations.
Don't introduce bylaws that will protect and help protect people. They're not saying don't put bylaws in place that are going to have masks being utilized. They're not. I don't know where you're getting that from, but they're not saying.
You said people who are discrediting science and doctors. We're not discrediting them. We are following our professionals. Alberta Health Services top doctor has set out the guidelines of what to do. Wash your hands, social distance.
Wear a mask.
That's not in the guidelines. It's not a mandatory thing.
Wrong.
If you cannot social distance, then you wear the mask.
Right.
It's not mandatory
You don't wear a
everywhere.
mask, or if you don't have a mask, then you're not going to put it on, regardless of where you're at. And you expose people to the virus. It's okay. It's all right. I'm not going to get off.
Councillor Gilroy?
Both of our councillors are correct in the sense that our province sets out guidelines, and they follow whatever Dr. Hinshaw says, and they do their best. And even when opposition people such as Rachel Notley say the government's not doing enough, we have to look at the fact that even when we have this in place, Albertans are are very independent thinkers. And some of them will say, I don't care about the penalty, I'm not going to wear one. Because you can't legislate fully people to do this stuff. We hope they'll use their common sense, which is really what the government's been trying to get done in Alberta. But obviously in some hot spots, people aren't using their common sense. What we do need is this in place to protect the vulnerable, but I think at the same time, our bylaw officer said that he uses discretion when he gives out tickets. And I think we need to trust our peace officer that he won't go ticket crazy.
Well, it would be educational for the first part of it. Obviously, some people aren't going to understand, so first thing is education. Yeah, we're not going to go out there and ticket everybody that's walking on the street that's not wearing a mask. No, that's not going to happen. We don't do that. It's going to be educational. It's going to be posted. Every business door is going to have a sign on it. So, yeah, education is first and foremost. So
it's good there that we do this in the sense of enabling the education to take place in a way that people will at least think about it. We're not going to turn this into a police state. We are wanting to have, for example, even the kids at school, they're changing how they use their masks. And I think it's amazing the way they do it. So I like having this safety net. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to use it to full extreme. But it's good to have it here. I'm just thinking, do you want to change the number though? If you're that concerned about it. Because Big Lakes County is pretty big. And I think Arlen brought it up. What if everyone was in Swan River? And then no one else? Because Swan River people don't really come here that often. Maybe they do. But if everybody's at the far end of the lake, and we have nobody in our area, then, so I mean, this is the trouble we go with. So do we want to go with the 15 is my only concern.
Councillor Stenhouse?
One number by itself is not good. In comparison to what? When you give a number, what does one number mean? 15 out of 100? 15 out of 200? We need.
This is 15 in the Big Lake County board.
Okay, so what's the population of Big Lakes County? Like, what is it? Like, one number is
7,000.
not.
Say it's 7,000.
It is roughly.
Okay, so
10,000 people have died as of today, 10,001.
Maybe during after the second reading or the first reading, we can take the bylaw and talk about ratios, but at least then we need to pass the first reading, and then work on any tweaking after that.
Any other comments on this one before we move on it? Okay. We have the motion was to give first reading to this bylaw. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Any other motions at this point in time?
Yes. I believe we go to the second reading.
Okay.
Page.
You got it?
I was there.
Okay, Councillor Gordley, step in.
The council gives second reading to bylaw 18/2020, the mandatory face covering bylaw, this 27th day of October 2020.
All right.
Nope, that's good.
We've gone through first reading. Any other changes or any other different discussion than we've had already? No different discussion? Okay. All in favor? Carried. opposed? Thank you. Yeah.
I thought you were for.
Yeah, I thought you.
I saw her move her hand though.
So,
Gunfight, you would've got shot.
so going to option 3, I got a feeling that this one won't pass, but we could try it. Councillor Long?
I'll put it out on the floor, and then, that council give unanimous consent to proceed to the third and final reading of bylaw 18/2020, the mandatory face coverings bylaw, this 27th day of October 2020.
All right. All in favor?
No.
Oh,
I'd
sorry.
like to speak on that
Discussion.
motion.
Sir, sorry.
So what goes from here is if we don't pass this, it gets brought forward at another date to go for the other reading, and then we pass it then, which puts us further back another 2 weeks because it doesn't get unanimous consent. And I still haven't understood your rationalization, aside from the fact that people out there don't want to wear them. And so you're going to say no to this. If you vote against it, you're saying that you don't care. You know, you're saying that you don't believe and you don't think that this is necessary, is the way I should be phrasing it, not that you don't care. And if you don't understand the importance of having to wear a mask in public as an elected official for the community that you serve, then I don't understand why you're here. This is probably the most important decisions we're making. Not the budget, not the swimming pool, God no. This has changed and killed over 10,000 people in our country. This ain't the flu. And so I don't understand why you would say no to it. I don't understand why you would be opposed to something as simple and preventative as this. Other than the fact that you don't want to be told, or people don't want to be told what to do. And again, you don't have the right to infect others because you don't want to comply. And if that's your position, you don't want to wear this and you're going to vote against it, I know exactly how you think then. And that scares me. Because you're not thinking rationally.
Councillor Long, no, listen, you're getting to a personal attack, so please keep it.
And death.
No, keep it from a personal attack.
Then through the chair, I would say that we have to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward, that we're out there to protect the community that we serve. And none of us in this table have the education or the wherewithal to dispute the recommendations that are being put forward to us from every province. Social distancing, wear a mask, wash your hands. Nowhere is there saying don't wear a mask. Nowhere. Every nation is saying wear a mask, wash your hands, social distancing. I don't know why you wouldn't support this, Judy. I don't know why. And I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Danaka?
Having this in place is one step ahead of a possible potential that could be coming. I pray and hope that we never have to implement it, but if we do, at least we have something in place now that has the potential, if we're up to 15 cases, or if we end up more, depending, who knows what the scenarios are going to be. I mean, Grand Prairie's at 91 and they were at 6 or something 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, it's explosive if it does happen. So, like I said, God forbid we have to use it, but at least we have it in place if we have to. And it's there, and we can implement it to hopefully control, stop, and at least save one person's life or multitude of people's lives, however you want to look at it.
Councillor Stenhouse?
Councillor Long, had you had been at the first conversation we had last meeting about this, a lot of the businesses are they're already going above. We've got sanitizing kits at their doors and everything. Why I'm against it is let the businesses, they're trying their darndest as they can. They're already suffering. Let them run their businesses by us dictating how they're going to run it, especially when they're following Alberta Health Services. Should Alberta Health Services say a mandatory mask is now in effect? Yes, it's across the board for everyone. We're not against it. It's just they're already following Alberta Health Services guidelines. And for the town to dictate how people are going to run their business or who they're going to let in, if they have a mask or not, if we're going to implement this, then are we going to supply those masks to these businesses so that they can hand out to people who don't have them? Or are we going to pay the wages for them to have someone sit at their door to implement this? That's why I really think we need to look into this stuff more. Yes, people are dying and we should be doing this, but it's a behavioral thing. And by allowing the businesses to take control of their own business and letting them set the precedent of who comes into their store with or without a mask.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to pass. It has to be unanimous to proceed to third and final reading. All those in favor? Opposed? It is defeated. Moving on then to our staff and CAO's written report and action list. Can I get a motion on this one?
I said after the first one that I wanted to.
Okay, no, we need a motion. Motion, staff CAO's report, it'd be on page 47. Councillor Stenhouse.
That the CAO's report is received for information.
Thank
That
you.
council received the CAO Rod Risley's report and action list for information.
All right, I'll turn it over to our CAO.
I don't really have too much more to add. Just definitely spending a lot of time on the Recreation Committee, which was talked at length. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes on that, and attended various other committee meetings. But I'll just leave it open for questions.
All right. Any questions for our CAO? Councillor Gilroy.
You talked about attending the joint use facilities. How's that going? Since we've been talking about that for the last little while.
So we did meet with them. The discussion was around a few things, and a couple of the key ones were the user fees that some of the schools are collecting, and the separate school board doesn't collect anymore. They did a few, but it was done in error, and they actually refunded that money. And the public school board has a little different opinion on how that agreement is written. They're going to look at the policy and debate it amongst their administration. And the other key piece was with regards to looking for some support, financial support on the use of the facilities. So right now, a lot of the hours that the facilities are open are being used by the schools at free of charge, and we indicated to them very clearly the financial position of the or financial status of those facilities, and we're looking for whatever financial support we could get from them. I'd say this time they're going back to talk about it, but it's not looking fantastic. Just like all government organizations, their dollars are extremely implemented. I don't think we're counting on dollars there, but we're gonna, keep pursuing. But I don't think we're really that hopeful. That was, we indicated to them that as we proceed through this process, the upcoming budget and what we're gonna have to do with facilities, we'd keep them, in the loop.
All right, any other questions? Councillor Danaka?
I just have a question or whatever you might want to call it. Have we or will we be sending a congratulatory letter to the county, to the new Reeve and Deputy Reeve? I think we should probably do that as a sign of good faith.
Yeah, I would think it certainly doesn't hurt. Yeah.
Ken is the new Reeve,
Reeve again.
and
Yes,
David Marks is the deputy. Yes.
Didn't see that coming.
Everything old is new again.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good idea that we can, on behalf of Councillor Gilroy.
Speaking of that, it's probably a little late, but did we ever send a congratulations to the new municipal affairs minister, since she's just down the road in Grand Prairie?
No. Councillor Stenhouse?
Did we ever send our gifts to the improvements to the town?
Not yet. We're working on that.
They will be done.
All right, anything else for CEO? Seeing nothing, all in favor? Carried. Moving on then to our verbal and written reports, or I'm going to say verbal. So, Councillor Danaka,
No report.
Councillor Gilroy,
No report for the committees.
Councillor Long.
No report.
Over to me then. I have attended a few meetings. Heart River Housing had their board meeting, and they're also having their interviews for the contractors to build the facility. They're having interviews today, and they had them today, and they'll have 2 more of the contractors on Thursday. And then they'll be making decisions on that fairly soon. Arlen and I were at the intermunicipal meeting. The topic of the intermunicipal was, well, one was the seniors bus, and we've talked about that already, and the other one was the helipad, and I've made mention about it. And I just want to, I'll just refer, they had, I didn't write them all down, but there was probably 6 people from AHS that were on the call. And in a nutshell, I'll summarize to say AHS said, you're fine to go ahead and build a helipad, but we don't want it on our site because we don't want to maintain it. They didn't say that that's their final answer, but that was what they gave us, and they were going to look into it some more, and because we asked a bunch of questions, and why not us versus others, and those kinds of things, and it was based on numbers again, and how many evacuations that we have, that kind of thing. So it's not looking very promising. They're not very optimistic. And if we go off-site, it doesn't have much use to go very far off-site if you want to minimize the number of times you're transporting or moving a patient. To move them a little ways, you can move them out to the airport. And that's part of the thing AHS is saying. We have good coverage medically. If anybody needs to be evacuated, they're being evacuated by air through there. And it was kind of interesting. They had some stats that I'm just going to look them up, but I think we were having 172 aerial evacs. Yeah, that's with the airport and with STARS. So it was a fairly big number. It's one every 2 days, right? Or less. So, yeah.
I'll just add to that, they basically said that they don't see the need for because the system that we have now is working so good, right? But what they fail to remember is the amount of money that us and the amount of money Big Lakes have put into the airport to make it what it is now, that they land and take off out of there for free every time. No charges. No charges to AHS for their planes to land and fly out of here. There's no regulation, there's no charge. But the amount of money that we've put in there, which I never really put two and two together, is, well, maybe we need to start charging them so that it's not so easy, and they may need to have a helipad at the airport if we're charging them an obscene amount of money to land and take off out of our airport.
Why not?
Right? We need to cover some expenses. So that's some of the discussions that were being thrown around. So just, it's a whole different aspect, right? Because they don't need a helipad because everything's just running so smooth and easy.
Yeah.
Well, we've made it too smooth and easy, maybe. So, food for thought.
Yep. The other thing that I attended was a webinar on cybersecurity through the AUMA. Very interesting about how many municipalities are getting hacked. And the AUMA does have some resources free of charge that they can use. We also have Trinus. I'm not sure how well we're connected or we're secure, but they did have some good ideas, and really recommended getting on. Most of the attacks are coming through emails and needing to educate staff to make sure they know not to click on these links and be able to identify phishing emails and stuff. So it's something that we should be looking at. I don't know if we're doing it or not, but it was very interesting on that. Just wanted to let everybody know that I got a call from the Legion that their Remembrance Day ceremony is going to be scaled way back to the point that they're only going to have 4 people on the stage. There's going to be a limited number of people that can come in, so the ceremony is going to be much more limited. As the mayor and the Reeve are not invited to come on stage this year, just so you know, because of COVID. And they said if this happens next year, we'll have, the Reeve and the mayor, and we won't invite the MLA and Staff Sergeant Warner to them, because those ones are usually on there too, and they picked those 2, and we were left out, but totally understand the premise of why. So that's.
But it will be live streamed on South Peace News.
Yes, and through our town website too, they mentioned. Are we doing something with that or helping them with that? No? Okay. They had mentioned the town, and I went, okay. So.
Oh, he just said he was doing a Facebook Live. Well,
oh, okay.
Someone from.
I don't think he really understood. He was a little confused with Facebook Live and streaming. I said, well, how's the town doing it? He said, well, I don't really know, but I know they're helping. I said, okay. So, anyways, yeah.
No, it's from the paper. They're doing the streaming through, I think, Facebook.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he's okay. And then the last thing is we've heard that Councillor Rose is resigning. I think we should be thinking of something that we can do for her. I mean, she's been 7 years on our council and she's been very active, and I don't know what we can do, but I'm putting the bug out there so we can think about it, and we should be doing something because she worked very hard for this town for a long time, and I think we need to recognize that, what she's given our town. So with that, I move my report for information, but I'll take any questions before we vote.
Just to be very clear, they have scrapped their helipad plans.
No, the helipad is not dead. Like I said, with the, I'm saying it's on life support because they were going to go back and look at the numbers again, and we talked to them about it, and we're going to have another meeting at some point down the road. But I certainly didn't get the impression that they were going to support the ongoing expense, because they were saying, you know, there's a big expense to having it on their site, and it's a cost for them. And we gave them options. For example, you know, maybe our fire department would go out and help secure the area when they had to come in and land. We said, you know, maybe we could look at that. And they weren't really willing to do it because they said it was their responsibility to provide the security for the landing, and if all of a sudden, you know, our volunteer fire department wasn't available, then they're still on the line. And so they were making a lot of excuses, and we were calling them on a lot, and they said, we'll look at it some more, and then we'll get back. Huh?
That one guy said no.
Yeah, the one guy said no.
Yeah, no, this isn't gonna happen.
Yeah, but some of the other committees says we're going to look at this again and we'll get back. So it's not looking good. That's, yeah.
Was there a representative of Star since they were pushing for it?
Yes,
in the meeting?
two of them.
Two of them, okay.
Yeah, and they were in favor, but
Well, yeah, no, but they were the ones that,
yeah.
Stars was the ones, when they came here and asked for donations, they were ones that were willing to work with us to get it done.
They massaged around the whole idea because they work directly for AHS, their big contract, everything.
Well,
And if they wanted, like, they would love a helipad there.
hey,
They can't go against AHS's wishes though.
it makes sense. I mean, the person who pays for it, that's the smallest part. It's the maintenance afterwards. Look at our skate park or any of the other facilities we have. People raise money for it. The town has to. So.
They did say though they are using the airport more and more for the fuel station with the smaller helicopters, because they have to use this as a launching pad for other locations. So they fuel up here and then continue on or back and forth. The bigger, newer helicopters now are one-way flights. So Grand Prairie, Edmonton, Grand Prairie to Fort Mac, right? They're long range. But on the other equipment, they're using this as a launching pad because of the fuel station. In and out for free.
Any other questions at this point? No, I move my report for information. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Courtley.
Well, you know what I've been up to. So the intermunicipal, which we've beat up a lot, and the Joint Recreation Committee, which you see what we brought forward, and that's all I got. I move my verbal report for information, and have any questions?
Seeing none, all in favor? Councillor Stenhouse.
Never report.
All right, let's take 10 minutes and then we'll come back for our closed sessions.